Hi, I'm going to talk about abdominal regions and quadrants and just a little bit about human anatomical variability in this last video of the anatomical terms and introduction notes. Okay, so I want you to imagine that you're trying to describe the site on a patient of an abdominal complaint. And imagine that you can't draw a picture. You're just going to have to describe where it is so that the next person who's taking care of this patient can have this proper information. The way that this is commonly done is that there are regions and quadrants that describe the abdominal area, okay? So let's talk about the regions first, and let's just talk about a little bit about the meanings of the words. So if we are talking about the abdominal regions, what you are going to kind of do is you are going to make three columns. You are going to have a right and left on each side, right? And then you're going to have a column that goes down the middle. So you're going to have a right and left hypochondriac region. From the old meaning of the word hypochondriac, I'll talk about it in just a second. A right and left lumbar region that are about the level of your lumbar vertebra. A right and left iliac region, which are named for the bone, the ilium, which is sort of that wingy bone that forms part of your hips. And then down the middle, you're going to have an epigastric region, epi meaning on or upon, and gastric meaning stomach, even though it's more on the liver than it is on the stomach, which is right there. An umbilical region that will contain your umbilicus or belly button, and then a hypogastric region. Hypogastric means below the stomach. So let's just make sure that the terminology makes sense for all of these. So hypochondro, hypochondriac, the word that how people mostly use it is the secondary meaning of the word. When somebody kept saying, oh, I got a pain right here, eventually you started calling that person a hypochondriac. But the original meaning of the word is hypo means below and chondro means cartilage. So below the cartilage, this costal cartilage that connects your ribs to your sternum, there's a lot of that. So you got your left and right hypochondriac regions. You have your left and right lumbar regions, as I mentioned. Epigastric means on or upon the stomach. Lumbar, about the level of your lumbar vertebra. Umbilical means navel, belly button. Right and left iliac means ilium. Those are also sometimes called the inguinal regions. Inguinal means groin. And then I have the hypogastric region, which is the one that's sort of named really strangely because, yes, it is hypogastric, below the stomach, but it's below a bunch of other stuff as well. So the hypogastric region. So what you guys are going to need to do is look in your textbook and find example organs that are found in each and choose a good one. Like, what is almost filling up the entire right hypochondriac region? Well, it's the liver, right? The epigastric region has the liver and the stomach in it. The left hypochondriac region, you may or may not know, the spleen's over there. So find some examples of things that are found in each of those regions. And since I'm not telling you specific ones, that means that will probably be a written question and not a multiple choice question because I don't know which one you're going to memorize, but choose a safe one. Okay, and then the abdominal quadrants, they're just four of them, right? So draw a line from your sternum all the way down to the pubic symphysis, and then draw a perpendicular line through your umbilicus, and you get the right upper, left upper, right lower, and left lower. Of course, that's not quite as specific, but it's useful. So what do you do with those? You know an example of an organ that's found in each of those as well, and those are also in your textbook. Okay, last little tidbit for this set of notes is just to talk a little bit about anatomical variability. So if you stood any group of humans up, here's an artist that kind of did a really cool 3D scanning of a bunch of different bodies. So all the people on this side are male and all the people on this side are female, and then this is a child. So you've been around for a while and you've looked at humans and you know that humans vary in their external anatomy and you're used to that, right? Humans also vary in their internal anatomy. So hopefully you'll get a chance to actually experience human anatomical variability by looking at the cadavers. So what do you expect to find? Do you expect for every single cadaver to look like the textbook? Well, you'll be sorely disappointed if you do, because you shouldn't be at all surprised to find that somebody's vessels branch here, somebody else's don't branch until there. The nerves, the organs are slightly different proportions and slightly different locations. It's not so different you couldn't use the textbook to figure out where things are, but it's just not anatomically identical. So how do you get used to that? Well, when you have models, right, those are idealized situations, but even all the models aren't the same as the other models. So if there are 4 different models for a structure, you look at all 4. If you are in the lab and there are 4 different cadavers, you don't just study the one that you're familiar with, you look at all of them to make sure that what you're looking at is not the exception instead of the rule. And which one do you get tested off of? Yes, any of them. Any of them are fair, okay? If something is outrageously abdominal or outrageously anatomically rare, you probably won't be tested off of that one, but there's so much variability that running into something we've never seen before doesn't happen very often. So look at every specimen, every model available. It's your job to look around and make sure that you've got a good picture in your head. Likewise, if you end up looking just at images in the textbook, if you study a single, for instance, histology image, you don't know that tissue. You have to look at multiple iterations. If you only look at the textbook picture and you don't look at the model or the cadaver picture, then you don't really know it. So you need to look at as much variability as you can so that you're comfortable by the time you go to an assessment, a test, or a quiz. Okay, and then one other thing I wanted to kind of show you, this is related to sort of art and science together, is that the artist who did this, his name is Scott Eaton. These are all 3D scans. He also did this anatomical variability thing that shows, I think it's kind of cool, shows different human anatomical variability, and he had them do different expressions, and you can see both in their still faces and also in the expressions that they make how much anatomical variability actually exists. So there's anatomical variability in proportions, in spacing, in pigmentation. Anatomical variability in humans, whether it's you or the patients you'll take care of eventually, is absolutely the rule, not the exception. Everyone has slightly different muscle variations and slightly different pigment variations and slightly different proportions, and that is the truth of humans. Okay, and then last tidbit is you will have a quiz that will cover this whole first set of notes and the prefixes, roots, and suffixes that I started out with, okay? The other thing is at the end of each of your sets of notes, almost all of them, I think, is there's this little thing right here that's actually a rabbit looking down a rabbit hole. And that just signifies that sometimes I get really interested in things. I'm not going to hold you responsible for them necessarily, but The Secret Lives of Cadavers is a National Geographic article that's fantastic and talks about the history of cadaver use for anatomical education and where they came from before and where they come from now and what we can learn from them. And then there's a journal article. Our cadavers were all given very generously by donors. So they are all donated, and the only way that our cadavers actually make it into these educational situations is the person has to actually fill out the paperwork to donate their cadaver, donate their body before they die. And then we actually have the cadavers after that. Okay,